Coming up on the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast.
I think, my best advice to parents is to become the role model that you want your child to see. And
Mhm.
I know everybody says that, but it is the way. It is the way to help your child. If you have a child who's struggling with weight, then before you start to change anything for your child, I recommend just spending a few weeks, a few months if you need to, on yourself first.
Mhm.
Okay, how am I, as the mom or the dad, how am I eating? Okay, how is my kid seeing me eat? How am I sleeping? How am I moving my body? How am I managing my stress and managing my emotions? And then when you can kind of get a sense of what you're doing for yourself and change what you need or want to change to show up for the way that you want your child to see you,
Mhm.
that without even mentioning anything to your child, that in and of itself will benefit your child.
Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I'm Brian Grin, and I'm here to give you actionable tips to get your body back to what it once was 5, 10, even 15 years ago. Each week, I'll give you an in-depth interview with a health expert from around the world to cut through the fluff and get you long-term sustainable results. This week, I interviewed board-certified pediatrician and obesity medicine physician, Dr. Sheila Carroll. Dr. Carroll is dedicated to helping children achieve their best health by working exclusively with parents who are willing to focus on modifying their own behaviors to ultimately improve their child's health. We discussed how to incorporate healthy habits for your kids, along with allowing your kids to be bored from time to time, helping kids eat single ingredient foods, the importance of cooking with your kids, and much, much more. Really enjoyed my interview with Dr. Sheila. I know you will too. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the show. All right. Welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin, and I have Dr. Sheila Carroll on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Board certified pediatrician and obesity medicine physician and helping children find their best health. And so, what sort of led you down this path?
Well, two things. I have a personal story of struggling with weight, carrying extra weight since I was a kid. And then for my adult life and as a career, I became a pediatrician, so trying to help kids. Um, and I just combined those two interests and thinking, for our kids, we want the best for them, obviously, every single parent, and we want them to be able to do whatever they want. But I'm seeing kids um, be limited in a lot of ways from their health sometimes,
Mm.
and from their weight specifically. But also, it's lifestyle. It's a lot of lifestyle choices like poor sleep, not getting enough sleep, so they're not as awake in school. They're not as active as they could be. So I combining my interests in helping kids, um, and then I was a pediatrician for 23 years, and the medical system today is set up so that people bring their kids to the doctor if their kids are having a problem with their weight, with anxiety, with depression, and so as the doctors, we spend time talking to the kids, which is helpful in a certain regard. But a more helpful approach I have found over time is talking to the parents directly, frankly, without even the kids there, so the parents can express and talk about their concerns, and the doctor can really be frank and talk about what is going to best help the child. And so that's what I've pivoted away from, like regular clinical care and a regular pediatric office, to really helping parents make the changes that they want to make to live a healthier lifestyle for themselves and their kids.
Yeah. And I was going to say, do you find that the kids that are having the issues really, is it coming down to the parents not having healthy habits that the kids sort of will follow? And how do you sort of navigate that?
Yeah, it can be. Sometimes parents are doing really healthy things for
Hmm.
themselves, but then they might have the belief like, oh, they're just kids. They should get to eat cereal. They should get to eat this sugary stuff. They should get to, and so sometimes
Sure.
because our culture, our modern culture is so, and the heavy marketing that goes to kids and to
Mm.
parents, like this is how you should feed your kid orange juice for breakfast, all of this stuff that turns out to be not very healthy for kids. So sometimes parents are super healthy for themselves, but they just don't have the belief that their child could eat the same way that they do or have the same lifestyle that they do. And then sometimes parents need a little bit of time to themselves on working on themselves first to
Hmm.
make the changes that they want to make for themselves. And I love helping people do that because when you can kind of see at times when parents make some lifestyle changes for themselves and then they start to feel better and they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I felt bad in the first place, but now I feel so much better. Then you can see like they're like, oh, and my child needs this too. I'm going to do this for my child too.
Mm.
And so that's a really wonderful approach as well.
And what would you say? I mean, you've been practicing for a while. The role that social media and phones. I mean, kids are probably getting phones earlier and earlier now than ever. What type of role does this play?
Well, it's interesting. I think that phones, I kind of have this thing where highly processed foods, these ultra processed foods that our kids are eating, I think the latest data says somewhere about 70% of the average American child, their entire diet is highly processed foods.
Hmm. That
70%.
sounds about right.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
really alarming and very disturbing.
Hmm.
And that's what we need to change. That's what we parents need to change. But the highly processed foods and the cell phones and the social media and the screens, they're kind of affecting all of our brains, but especially our kids' brains in the same way that the highly processed food with the added sugars and uh, the salt and the fat is giving you this huge like dopamine hit. And what that does is it's teaching your brain, oh, that was good. That felt good. Do that again. And so we learn that way. And this is what the cell phones are doing for us as well. You scroll and it feels good and you scroll and it's the same exact phenomenon. And so what I like to try to help parents understand is that we are a very ancient species. We evolved very slowly over, millennia. And the highly processed food, the modern food culture, the modern food that we have available to us has really been around in the past, 50, 60, 70 years. And phones even less, right? I remember when I got my first iPhone. And so our brains and our human bodies were not evolved to really know how to handle these things. So this is the work. This is the work that we need to do. Okay, how do I live in a very modern culture with this very modern food and these very modern conveniences, which we love and which help us and benefit us so much, but understanding my ancient human body, how can I make these two things go together and take the best of the modern world, understanding what we need to do to stay healthy. Because the problem is when we're consuming all of these highly processed foods and then we're consuming all of this screen time, we're getting sick from that.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that.
And also, too, I don't know if you see this like with kids. I don't have kids myself, not yet, but um, they don't know what it's like to be bored. Is that something that you work with the kids or just talking with the parents regarding that?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I have a 12-year-old son and he does not like to be bored at all.
Right.
And in today's world, almost nobody is bored. I just went to the grocery store. everybody in the grocery store line is on their phone.
Yeah.
So,
Getting this stimulation. You see it in the gym.
yeah,
The gym, like
yes,
the kids, even adults, are on their phones the whole
yeah,
time between
yeah,
sets, no socializing, nothing or
yeah.
interacting.
I know.
It's
Yep. Yep.
crazy.
And so, a lot of habits, co- we don't like that feeling of boredom.
Right.
And so we do stuff to avoid that feeling. So overeating, or eating, oh, I'm bored. Oh, I'll go eat something. That's called emotional eating.
Sure.
Or the scrolling. It's anything over shopping, over watching TV, even over exercising. If you really go for some people, if people don't like boredom, so they want to do something to get away from it. So what's the solution there? Teaching yourself first as the grown up so that then you can teach your kid to recognize that feeling of boredom and just become aware, oh, I'm feeling bored. And then to be willing to actually feel it
Right.
and then realize like, oh, okay, this is boredom. I don't need to go eat something. I don't need to drink something. I don't need to use my phone. Oh, okay, this is boredom.
Yeah. And my nieces and nephews for a while, not well, they're still going, but they'll go to overnight camps for like it's big in our area for like 4 weeks or 8 weeks.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah, and I think the nice thing with that is they can't bring their phones with them.
Yeah.
And I just think like more of that should be going on. I'm not sure what it's like in the schools, but I'm sure kids are on their phones a lot during school, whether they're allowed to or not. But like things like overnight camp where you don't have your cell phone and you actually just are outside and playing like we used to do.
Yeah.
I think that
Have
could
you
help.
asked your nieces and nephews if they liked that break from the phone?
I do. It's been a little bit, but I did. I remember asking them, what it would, if they miss their phones, and I don't. I think it probably initially yes, but it's like anything when you're away from something for so long, you don't rely on it as much, and they probably just sort of realize that that's the thing. If it's not there, and then they're not going to use it. It's like if you don't
Yeah.
buy it, you're not going to eat it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But,
So I live up here in Maine. And there's a lot of overnight camps for kids, and
yeah, East
I
Coast. Yeah.
think it'd be such a great, and a lot of them obviously are cell phone free. And then I wish they would all go highly processed food free.
Oh, yeah,
That would be such a bonus. Like, what an experience for kids to have that, to have, screen free and highly processed food free.
what would you say the reasoning? I mean, obviously, processed foods are everywhere, and there's a child. What is a way for a parent to, introduce normal foods like single ingredient foods into their
Mm.
kid's life, and while also allowing the kid to indulge from time to time and finding that sort of that balance.
Right. Yeah, there's the way to do it is for the parents to just get very committed to this is how our family is going to eat.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that would come if people truly understood that highly processed foods are actually harmful for us. They're not even neutral. They're not even like, oh, okay, well, maybe I could make a better choice. They're actually like harming us and harming our kids. And I know I didn't know that for a long time, even as a doctor. And
Hmm.
certainly we certainly aren't taught that in medical school. It wasn't until I really, took a personal interest. I had my own child, and then I was struggling with my own weight and issues. And then I really took a deep dive into nutrition and our food system. And I just think most parents don't know that, and there's so many things, and I don't think even physicians completely, none of us completely understand what all of these things that are doing to our bodies. For example, you take something that has, emulsifiers, artificial dyes,
Sure.
they affect our body in different ways, and the scientists are still trying to figure out, they're still trying to elucidate why or how these things are negatively affecting us. And but the message that I give is that if parents can work on the belief that it's entirely possible for my child to eat real food. Because I think sometimes parents struggle to even really truly believe that, you
Sure.
know. But once you do, there is a wonderful tool I share with families called the division of responsibility. It was created by a nutritionist and a family therapist named Ellen Satter, and it breaks down the responsibilities of feeding a child, and you can even extend it to teenagers. And the parent's responsibility is deciding what foods are going to be offered, and then also what foods are going to be offered, when and where. And then the child's responsibility is to decide if they're going to eat what food is being offered and how much of that. And so that really shifts the onus of healthy nutrition onto the parent where it belongs, in my opinion. Because if we are buying stuff, soda or I don't know, all the
Cookies,
things at
donuts.
home,
Yeah.
yeah. If I buy something like that, if I buy cookies at home, then I know then I'm allowing my son to have
You're
those.
giving him
Um,
permission, just the
yeah,
fact
I'm
that you
giving him
bought it.
permission.
Right, right.
Exactly, exactly. So, and then every parent can decide where they want to fall in that, in that regard. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it's just working on the belief that your kid can actually do it. And then I think understanding why our kids really like processed food. Why do they like it? Okay, well, there's a lot of reasons. It tastes good. It's made in a lab. It's supposed to taste like that. It tastes the same every single time you buy a chicken nugget. It's got the same if you buy the same brand, it's the same consistency. So it's triggering this chemical release in their kids' brain. And so understanding our kids, we humans are wired to like sweet things. I think that, I forget what it is. It's close to 70%, I think, of every food that's in the grocery store, packaged food in the grocery store has added sugar. Even if you don't know, even if it's a savory food, like, barbecue sauce or spaghetti sauce, if you start to really look at the back of packages, so many of processed foods that have added sugars, and those are added, to improve the taste, number one, but also people know that sugar is addictive and that keep you buying it. So for us parents, I completely understand why my son wants to eat Doritos. Of course he wants to eat those, then it's my job as the adult in the room to say, yes, I know you want to eat those, but they're actually harming you. And we can have a few of them here and there,
Sure.
but not all the time.
Yeah, as you were talking, I thought of a few things. Well, one, when you said the chicken nuggets, and I think that one way, and for I don't know, kids or even teenagers to maybe sway them away from certain foods is to show them how they're actually made. Uh,
Mm.
because I remember it might have gone viral for a while. I haven't seen it, but like how I think they showed how a chicken nugget was made, with like that. It looked like slime was coming out of. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it was,
Yeah,
yeah,
pink slime, I think, or
pink
something.
slime was coming
Yeah,
out. It was like in a factory,
I
and this was
know.
the making of it. So I don't know. That could be one way. I feel like if you show someone how something's really being made, that might sway. That might be good for like the teenagers maybe to
Yeah.
watch.
And the other thing teenagers really respond to and all kids really respond to, they don't like to be fooled. They don't like to be tricked. And if they feel that the food companies are tricking them, manipulating them,
Mhm.
they're like, no, they don't want any part of that. And so if you can explain to your teenager or your kid that, you know, these they're making these foods not for your health. They're making food to make money. And so we need to figure out what foods are good for your health and and taste good for you and that you'll like. But
Yeah.
when a teenager realizes, oh, they're adding sugar to this, or oh, they're adding these chemicals to this, lots of teenagers are like, oh, I don't want to support that.
And also, too, what I wrote down when I was thinking when you were talking is cooking with kids. Is this something that you
Oh,
encourage
this
to
is the
parents? Yeah.
best gift you can give your child. There's a one of this guy, Dr. Robert Lustig. He's written some really great books.
Yeah.
Um,
I've had him on
and
actually.
you what?
I've
You
had
had
him
him
on
on
my,
too?
I've had him
Oh
on. Yeah.
wow,
It's been a
awesome.
little
I
while.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
Um, but he said, I'm gonna just paraphrase him because I don't have the exact
Yeah.
quote. But if you don't learn to cook, you are hostage to the processed food industry for the rest of your life. And so for parents, teaching your kid how to cook is an amazing gift. And it doesn't have to be like incredible, French whatever cooking,
Yeah. No.
just basic life skills, basic cooking, and that is such a healthy thing to do.
And even if you're cooking things that might be sort of sweets, right? Like homemade cookies or even homemade ice cream, right, is a lot healthier than store bought. Um,
I agree.
for the most part. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously,
Right.
but you're controlling what's going in it,
Yeah.
and I think that might be sort of a good balance where you're allowing them to have this, but you're actually working to have it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we really want. We want for ourselves, and we want our kids to have a healthy relationship with food. And that doesn't mean never eating something or completely giving something up. It means understanding, the food system, how food works in your body, and also how your body feels when you eat certain foods. Yeah.
And another thing I was just thinking about was like, especially as become a teenager, is if you start to become active. Obviously, I think it's important for kids that not that they have to be lifting weights in a gym, but if they start to be active and realize that in order for me to perform whatever it is sport or running or whatever they do, they'll start to realize how food can really affect how they perform, whether it's on the field or in the weight room or whatever it is. And I think getting them
Yeah,
started,
or in the classroom,
or
or in the
yeah,
orchestra,
sure,
or in drama. I mean, the
right,
truth is our food affects everything, because everything, every neurohormone, every chemical, every cell in our body is made from the food that we eat. And more, data is coming out showing highly processed foods linked to anxiety, depression, yes, performance for sure, but really just, being able to live the life you want, you would be doing yourself a favor by eating real food.
yeah. And what would you um tell a parent, like nowadays with Instagram and social media, like the body image is such a big thing, and everyone seems to have a perfect body on Instagram for the most part. I'm sure this is an issue that as kids become teenagers, how do they sort of I don't know, how do they help their kids with things like that? Like,
My approach to that is to talk about, not talk about weight, talk about health,
mm,
um, and focus on, we're doing this to be healthy. We're getting good sleep because it improves our health. We're eating this way because it's good for our health.
right.
And then, if the child is really, or the teenager is really focusing on it, just having real conversations with your child about their body, um, and and listening to them, really, because that's what kids want and kids need. If your child is coming to you, or you're noticing, they might not come to you and say, oh, I'm really insecure about my body or
Right.
whatever, But, you can really listen to them and empathize with where they are, have compassion, and the way a parent talks about their own body is so important. And talking about all the wonderful things that our bodies do for us, and accepting I think as parents, accepting ourselves, and then reflecting back to our kids that we accept them just as they are. And we're not trying to get them to eat in a different way because then they'll be more acceptable, or we're not trying to get them to lose weight because then they'll be more valuable, or
Yeah.
they're already 100% worthy, 100% valuable, just as they are. We want to try to shift these lifestyle things that might need a little tweaking to allow them to live their best life and be free.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure these are difficult topics for a lot of parents to navigate. Um, what would you say like are the biggest topics that come up, for you and your clients and individuals that come to you? Is it the weight portion, or is it getting kids to eat certain way, or what would you say the biggest topics that come up?
Well, those are both really big things. And,
Yeah,
parents want to help their kids without harming them,
sure.
obviously. So parents might be very worried about a child's weight, but they don't know how to talk about it. They don't know how to approach it. And they're not even sure what to do, frankly, to improve the situation. So I spend a lot of time with my clients talking about things like that. And I think, my best advice to parents is to become the role model that you want your child to see. And
Hmm.
I know everybody says that, but it is the way. It is the way to help your child. If you have a child who's struggling with weight, then before you start to change anything for your child, I recommend just spending a few weeks, a few months if you need to, on yourself first.
Hmm.
Okay, how am I, as the mom or the dad, how am I eating? Okay, how is my kid seeing me eat? How am I sleeping? How am I moving my body? How am I managing my stress and managing my emotions? And then when you can kind of get a sense of what you're doing for yourself and change what you need or want to change to show up for the way that you want your child to see you,
Hmm.
that without even mentioning anything to your child, that in and of itself will benefit your child
Right.
because they're learning from us. They're watching us all the time.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. I mean, actions speak a lot louder than words, especially if those words are coming from a parent who's not necessarily walking the walk.
And it's hard. It's
Yeah,
hard. The same reason our kids love these foods, we like these foods too.
sure.
It's just, it's for all of us parents. I think as a society, we're really struggling here in the United States with our health, with our metabolic health, with our weight, with all of these lifestyle related diseases that we're suffering from. Parents and adults need help figuring out how to actually implement what they want to implement. Because pretty much most people know, oh, we should be shopping the perimeter of the grocery store. Oh, we should be eating real food. But where there's a gap is like, okay, but how? How do I get myself to do that all the time and still feel happy and still feel not deprived and still feel, so that's there's an implementation gap. Um, and that's huge for kids too, because kids just cannot do that by themselves. That bridging that gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it, that takes your prefrontal cortex, that takes your executive functioning skills, and we know that those aren't developed in kids, but they are developed in us grown-ups. And so when we learn those skills, then we can help our kids learn them over time.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. And I was just thinking about like, for example, like my sister has and her husband have 3 kids, and like what you sometimes see, because I work with a lot of like middle-aged males, and that have sort of gotten out of shape, and once they have more responsibilities and work
Mm.
and kids. But one of the things I envy with them is they've always kept up their side of things as far as like self-care and um, uh, like strength training and things like that. And they always found the time to fit it in. And I think a lot of times parents, once they have kids, they sort of take the onus off themselves and just focus on their kids, when they really should be putting even more focus on themselves, because not only they're going to help their health, but they're going to also lead by example and show the kids that these are good habits to form as you age.
Right, exactly. That's part of our culture. That's part of
Yeah.
our culture too. I can't, if you added up the amount of hours that parents stand around watching their kids exercise, watching their kids play soccer, watching their kids play hockey, but yet they don't have the time to do that themselves. So what's the solution to that? Then you just have to, each individual parent has to really look at their values, their core values, and is health a core value, and prioritize it. And it's not easy, and it's not it takes effort, and it's a cost,
Right.
because time, there's a limit, there's only a limited amount of time. So if you're going to do that, then something else is going to fall off the wayside. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, you got to sort of inconvenience yourself a little bit, right? If that's getting up earlier, I will say it's like I remember my brother-in-law would be up so early working out, which is, that's the only time that he could get it in, which I think for a lot of parents, if they get it done first thing in the morning, then they have the rest of their day. So you got to sort of find a time to fit it in. Uh, but also sleep, which is another topic that I'm sure is really important.
yeah.
How do you navigate sleep with the kids nowadays? I feel like, I mean, they're in their bedrooms a lot of times, maybe on their phones for a couple of hours before they're going to bed and things like that.
I think kids are staying up a lot later than even their parents realize because of the devices.
Right.
So, this is my advice: is no screens of any kind in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And especially for younger kids, it's kind of a safety issue with regards to like what they're looking at on their screen. And we know that there's less problems if they're using a screen in a public, in a public area of your house. But
Sure.
for sure, sleep is so critical. Well, for all of us
Yeah.
humans, but for kids, for sure. And I think in the past few decades, we know that our sleep has gone down, at least an hour a night, and that has correlated with an increase in obesity and an increase in poor health outcomes. But just trying to, and this for me is another parenting issue is like, you have to have a boundary around sleep. We have boundaries around safety for a lot of things.
Hmm.
Seatbelts in cars, bike helmets when they're biking, and we need to look at these lifestyle issues for our kids as safety issues, because they are to be as healthy as possible. Your child does need to get the recommended amount of sleep on a regular basis. They
Yeah.
do need to eat healthy food. They do need to be moving their body. And just like, my son probably wouldn't have learned to use his seatbelt if I didn't refuse to drive, if he wasn't going to buckle up.
Right. Right.
We just need to instill these habits in our kids, and to do that we need to have these habits ourselves first.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just think like back my childhood. I mean, we're such creatures of habit, right? I don't know if it was just, I never had a TV in my room growing up.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was just like never a thing. And I never even thought about it until now that I'm older. I'm like, yeah, I never. And, I think there's something to that, because now I notice with myself, I don't really have, things can change obviously, but like, I don't really have the urge to like watch much TV in the evening, which when most people do.
Right.
I'd rather do other things. So I don't know. I think instilling some of these things, I'm not saying that just because there's no TV in the room doesn't mean this is going to, sort of change your whole life. But I think little things like this, that you instill these habits early on, can make an impact.
I mean, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, I do think they change your life.
Yeah.
If people keep their phones downstairs or wherever in a different room, they actually sleep better. They have better quality sleep.
Mhm.
When you know your phone's there, there's something about it that's just, we go through these sleep phases and you come to these very light states of awakening, and then you go back into a deeper sleep. And, it's kind of like this wave all night long. But sometimes, when people are coming to a lighter state of awakening, they're like, oh, my phone.
Right.
And it is that the draw is that strong. And that's just that's just how we're wired. That's our human, that's how we've evolved. But we need to understand, like, oh, the way these phones are so powerful. Okay, how can I help myself? I need to put this somewhere else. And for sure, the kids. I mean, I can't even tell you how many kids I talk to outside of when their parents aren't in the room, like, oh, I'm up until 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I just can't fall asleep. That's what they say. They're like,
Mhm.
I can't fall asleep. I can't fall asleep. So I use my phone. And they're not really able to connect, like, well, by using your phone, that's what's keeping you awake. So it's just, I think parents need to really.
Is that about just creating boundaries around all these things?
I
Yeah.
think so. I
Yeah.
do. This is it, and it's boundaries around food, boundaries around like everything we just talked about. Yeah. Keeping boundaries, holding the boundaries, and also at the same time, like in a loving way with wiggle room once in a while, fine. But
Sure.
looking at the lifestyle choices as a safety factor for your child and as the way that you have to do to keep your child healthy. Because if we just let our kids eat the modern processed foods, if we let our kids use the screens, as much as they want, it's harmful to them. It's harming them, and they will get sick.
Yeah. What about the influence of other kids having on your child? I mean, obviously you can't, like, they live in a bubble, right? You're going to be, I see I'm just thinking, like, as I grew up, I was lucky. I think a lot of my friends and I had made good choices for the most part, but you see this a lot of times with kids. If they just get in sort of with the wrong group of kids, this can really influence how they go about things, and they can
Right.
almost rebel, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing, I think that you're exactly right. Your kids' friends have a powerful influence on them, and
Right.
that's normal too. This is how humans have evolved, of course, and this happens more and more as they go through their adolescence. So one thing I focus on with my clients is the connection they have with their child, and having this strong, loving, presence in your child's life and being connected to them, um, even if they're not doing all the things you want them to. We parents, we have to stay connected to our child, and we have to be this, you know, presence in their lives. This, in a perfect world, like, non-anxious presence is a term that two of my favorite authors who wrote The Self-Driven Child. That's such a wonderful book if parents,
Hmm.
your readers, want to read that
Self-driven,
book. Yeah,
self-driven.
I think it's written by Bill Stixrud and oh my gosh, Ned is his first name and I'm blanking his last name.
Okay.
But wonderful, the best parenting book I've ever read, frankly.
Hmm.
And yeah, so staying connected to them and knowing that, of course, kids are gonna, try things, make mistakes.
Sure.
We want to be a place, like a soft place at home, when they're still with us, they can make these mistakes, and they're not, hopefully not horrible, horrible, horrible mistakes, right?
Right. Right.
And so we can go through this process of, it's called supporting your child's autonomy. And what the whole idea there is, you want to allow your children to make decisions. And we can do this around food, around screen, or, around everything. Help your child understand that what the decisions that they're going to make and the potential downstream effects, either positive or negative. Then we let the child make the decision, and then we're there for them. We stay connected to them. And then after the decision has been made and whatever's happened, we review with them and we help them learn, oh, how did that go? You decided to not study for your test. We talked about it. You knew you had a test. You chose to study less or stay up late.
Right.
Okay, let's just in a kind way. Okay, let's talk about, do you like the result that you're getting, or do you like the result that you had from that? That's such a wonderful life skill that we can offer our kids, helping them understand the connection between their actions and the results, the things that they do or don't do, and the results in their life, and building that skill with them and showing them. I think that's such a wonderful gift parents can give their kids.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you made me think of, I coach high school golf, and I can talk to them while they're on the course and they're playing, so I could offer advice. And my thought is, I always let them make the decision, so I can give them their options. Because sometimes when you're playing golf, you don't realize a certain option is there. Like maybe you should punch out and not try to hit it through the tree. Something like that. So I will offer those options and just let them make the decision, because if they don't pull off that shot, at least they put the blame right back on themselves, and not obviously blame anyone other than themselves for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a wonderful way to coach. Yeah, and that we can parent in that exact same way,
Right.
Especially when the stakes are really small,
Yeah.
and they're small when they're little, and then they get progressively bigger as they age. Yeah.
Age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But understanding that our kids are, their own beings, they're their own selves. And we just want to be able to offer them, not control them, and not, for example, like with kids that are old enough to go to their friend's house. Okay, what are they going to eat there? My recommendation is you don't even try to control any of that. The whole
Right.
idea is that you want to have instilled in your child at home. They know what's good for them and what's not good for them, and then they can make the choice, and then they can live with the result in a kind, way that you're still supporting them.
Yeah. You're like bringing me back to my childhood. But I will say this, that as another example. I remember I was in high school. I think I was a freshman in high school. I tried a Marlboro Red cigarette. And I remember being outside of this guy's house, and I think I took maybe a couple hits, and I was just like sick, beyond sick, dizzy,
Mm-hmm.
and never had a cigarette the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, and I think the fact that I made the decision to do it, and then I just got so sick from it that I was like done. I don't know,
Yeah.
that was I'll never forget that, and I never obviously had any cigarette or anything like that again. So
Yeah, it's so well, we already, our kids already experience this with, yeah, cigarettes, with alcohol, with
right,
driving, that kind of thing. So they're already at some point, experiencing these things as they age.
right,
Yeah, so it's just teaching them, offering them help, understanding if you choose that, what do you think might be the downstream effect? If you choose this, what might be the downstream effect? Just
right.
gives them so much freedom and so much power. And so it's so empowering. It's so freeing.
Yeah, because whether you like it or not, your kids are going to have these temptations, and it's going to come down to all the things that you've instilled in them over the years for them to make the right decision, and hopefully follow down the path that you would want them to follow down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yes, and understanding, yeah, it's a little bit of a wavy road. but that, kids do want to be healthy. Every single child I've ever talked to, they don't want to be sick. They don't want to feel bad. They don't, but they might not know, what exactly to do. So that's our role. That's our job. And unfortunately, in the current society that we're in, it's hard for parents. We are swimming upstream trying to
Mm,
keep our kids healthy because we are like, you know, no, no to
right.
this food, no to that food, no to that screen. No, it's just like it's tiring and it's exhausting, but it is worth it for the parents to do that to protect your kid and protect your kid's health. And unfortunately, the government's not helping us, and the food industry is not helping us. Just because foods are for sale does not mean they're safe. Just because these social media apps are available does not mean they're safe. And so it falls to the parents. Because if we don't do things to protect our kids, they could potentially, have some outcomes that we wish they didn't have.
And what about, yeah, you just used the example of saying no to this, no that. Is there, I mean, obviously using the word no all the time, I don't know if that's good, bad, or too much, or if how do you go about, rejecting things that your kids are keep bringing up?
Well, for me personally, depending on what it is, I would say, as your mom, it's my job to keep you safe. So I just can't in good conscience give you, for me, I had this conversation with one of my son's friends who drinks Sprite. The kid, he loves to drink Sprite and he drinks it a lot at home. And we went somewhere and he wanted to get a Sprite.
Wow.
I was just like, if you look at the back of a Sprite, it's like 70 grams of sugar in one bottle or something. And so I just said no. And I said, I love you so much. And I said, I just can't help. I just can't in good conscience do this for you. But what's another option? Would you like a sparkling water? Would you like a regular water? Would you like a unflavored tea or so, and then offer options. But you know what? I don't feel bad that I'm saying no.
Sure.
Because I'm helping him, number one. And, I would never say, oh, okay, just have this beer. It's fine. I don't want to say no all the time. Go ahead.
Well, do you find that a lot of times parents give in because they've just lost patience with trying to,
Yeah, me too.
yeah,
Sometimes, you just feel so beaten down and depending on the rest of your day and
right.
your sleep and yeah, and that's normal. And this is where like marketing does not help us. And the kids are seeing all of this stuff and especially at social media, but it's all portrayed as perfectly normal to give your kid all of these things. And so kids kind of expect it. So it is hard. It's a change, but I can tell you if you're willing to kind of put in the effort and fight the good fight for a little while, you will see changes in your child and it'll become much less of a constant battle. And then eventually, what I've seen in my son is he doesn't even want those things anymore.
Hmm.
I heard him say to somebody the other day, "Oh, we don't drink soda." And we used to drink soda. I used to drink Diet Coke and he would drink, I think we drank Fresca. I don't even, but we don't, now we just don't do that anymore. And he sees himself as a person who just doesn't drink soda anymore.
Right.
And so I think it's 100% possible, and we just have to be willing to try, fail a little bit, try, fail, keep going, and
Right.
that's also just hopefully parents are willing to keep going.
Well, Sheila, this was great. I just got a master class in parenting and now I'm all ready. This is an hour of free consulting. So thank you for
Well,
that.
parenting, honestly, this is, I have a 12-year-old, I have one child. It's been the best, the most wonderful thing in my life, for sure. And I know parents love their kids. I've never met a parent who doesn't just absolutely adore and love their child. And I just hope parents realize how powerful they are in their kids' lives, in the role that they can play for good. And it's so worth it to just try to make these little changes and help your kid.
Awesome. Well, a lot of great advice today, Sheila, and this was great. I'm glad to have you on. And where's the best place for people to find you?
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I have a website. It's my whole name, SheilaCarrollMD.com.
Okay.
I have a free guide that people could download from there called How to Make Parenting Around Food Feel Less Hard. Because this is a topic that a lot of parents struggle with. But that's the easiest place. My email's on there. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have, specific questions about their family. Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll put links in the show notes so people can find you and they can book a call if they want to talk to you as well. So yeah, I appreciate everything you do. So thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangrin.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again and have a great day.